Good afternoon and welcome my 94.7 Gospel Giant family to another edition of Doctor to Doctor in the chat room. We are here with our special guest today. I have two radio kings with me today. You will hear from them in a moment. I hope that you guys are staying safe and I hope that you are using those necessary precautions to stay safe as we are still, as I always say, in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. And if you have not gotten tested, please do so. If you don't know how to do that, just contact your local health department and they should be able to point you in the right direction. I need a drum roll. I don't know why I didn't go find one. I have today Mr. Leon Gray. He is special assistant to Judge Dan Michael with the juvenile court system in Shelby County. And we have the Honorable Representative Johnny Shaw, my daddy-o.
Yes,
I'm just
indeed.
trying to be quiet.
You
Till I'm
have to
told
be a
to talk.
professional and let me run my show today. And we are going to continue our discussions surrounding race relations in America. One of the things that, and I want you guys to just talk a little bit about who you are, your background when you get started. But one of the things that I asked on the show last week was, why doesn't America embrace me? And I'm stealing this thought from Chris Cuomo on CNN, and he was saying he was talking to one of his African American friends, and he said, "Why doesn't America love me? What is it about me, a person of color, that America has so much trouble embracing who I am?" Would you guys please let's start there, okay? Would you start for me, Mr. Gray?
You can call me Leon, and I'll certainly be glad to start. Glad to be back on your show, Dr.
Glad
Shaw.
to have you.
Yeah, good to see you, Leon. Yeah.
Good to see you too, Representative. Let me first give kudos to Representative Johnny Shaw for some fine work that they did in the legislature so that we can do absentee voting in the presidential election. That was a very fine piece of work. So fine that the state Supreme Court had to rule in their favor, or the Chancery courts had to rule in their favor in order to allow us to vote by mail. So, Representative Shaw, thank you so much for that hard work.
Yes, thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah.
And that speaks to where I want to go. We were thought of, historically, let's go 400 years to answer that question. Historically, we were chattel. We were just animals, not even human. The Constitution says 3/5 of a man. And our melanin in our skin made us different. And then other assets God gave us made us different. And we are one of the greatest anomalies on this earth. Black people are at the same time the most loved and the most hated people on this earth. When we are shooting a basketball, hitting a tennis ball, running the football down the field, hitting the baseball, we are loved for those kinds of things. And then you turn around and quite honestly, the hate turns on when we try to enroll in a college that we're not supposed to go to, or when we're trying to move into a neighborhood that we're not supposed to go to. So you can use systematic, you can use systemic, or all the big words you want to. The thing is that we're 12.5% of the population now, and what's scaring non-people of color the most is this: they say by 2025, 51% of all babies born in this country will be brown. So therein lies fear.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Are you ready for me,
I am.
Dr. Rhonda?
Yes, sir.
Well, listen, I am known on the radio as Brother John, so that should wrap it up. I'm going to throw you a curveball. Why should America love me as long as I love America? That's the curveball I'm going to throw you. And I want to start with this because I often use this, and I think you've heard me say this, I'm sure you have, and I'll say it again. My dad, who I don't brag because he was uneducated, but he had a lot of wisdom because he told me something when I was very young. I came along during that time. I'm old enough that I saw some of the white-only signs. I heard the word N-word several times. But here's what Dad told me. Dad says, here's what I want you to remember. I named you Johnny Shaw. It doesn't matter what anybody else called you. You only answer if they call you by the name of Johnny Shaw. If they don't say Johnny Shaw, you ask them who you're talking to because you're not talking to me. Don't ever buy into being anybody else but Johnny Shaw. Mm-hmm. So I don't buy into but one thing. I love America. Now, we could come up with 1,000, and I know Dr. Gray would agree with me, and I agree with what he said, but we could come up with 1,000 different reasons why America may not like us. And here's what I found out. If a person doesn't think like you, you can't get into their head and they can't get into your head. Now, racism is not only a learned, but it's look at the word, it's inherited, because if you've been taught all your life you're better than somebody else, you're going to believe you're better than somebody else. As Solomon said it, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So some people have been taught all their lives they are better than us. So what else would they think? But they are better than that. Now, we know they're not, but they think they are. So what I think we have to do is a whole lot of things we have to do, starting with educating ourselves, how to survive and how to get through this wilderness of racism, because you know what, it's not going to go away. I've said today, we can pass laws to punish police officers for brutality, but we can't pass no law to make them follow the rules. All we can say is, if you break the rule, we're going to treat you just like we treat everybody else. We're going to put you in jail. We're going to do whatever. You ain't going to get no break that anybody else get. But racism is not going away. We may as well acknowledge the fact that we will be facing this for the rest of our lives. So how do we survive? We look for survival kits for ourselves. We love America, even if America doesn't love us. We look for opportunities. Now, I'm not here to be naive to say, hey, they're going to just give us an opportunity because we look, but we can't give up. So what we have to do is to start educating ourselves. And I'll say this because you say don't talk too long and make you miss your breaks. But we got to educate ourselves. When there's a DA race, you don't hear anything about it. If Johnny Shaw running for state rep, or if Leon's running for something local, everybody talks about it. But when the DA, who's one of the most important people in this country, running for re-election, nobody says anything. We got to educate ourselves so we can make sure that we put the right people in the right place who will always be prejudiced, but at least will pass laws that are comfortable for all of us to live by. And that's one of the things we haven't done. I went to a rally yesterday, and they talked about how great the students were, rather than giving some information on what we need to do next.
Mm-hmm. So here's the thing. So we've got, and I hate even calling names, but for the sake of where I'm going with this, I'm going to do that. We've got Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, the lady in Central Park that falsely accused the guy of trying to attack her and her dog. Mm-hmm. But then we have George Floyd.
Yeah.
And the needle starts to move a little bit. What's different? What's different with George Floyd?
Well, go ahead. Doug.
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I honestly think the difference is that the TV cameras the cell phone cameras caught in real time.
Right.
Some lynchings in the 21st century. Something that used to take place in 1920 happened 3 weeks apart. Now I know Ahmaud Arbery was killed in February, but we didn't see that video until 3 weeks before George Floyd was killed.
Right.
So in less than a month, we saw in real time two lynchings in less than a month in the 21st century. And for the first time since Rodney King, we had an explosion of emotions because this was the tipping point for African Americans, one, and secondly, it was a wake-up call to whites who said, this is not us. This is not America.
Right.
If we've got 21st century lynchings 3 weeks apart, this is not, and in real time on videotape.
Yes.
And this is different than times past. We knew that Trayvon Martin was killed and stopped, but we didn't really see it all on videotape. We watched two men die, black men die unarmed, one in handcuffs, and on videotape in real time. This is different. This is different. This is not going away, and most especially the Floyd murder, because of the fact that it was done by people whose job is to serve and protect.
Right.
We've always known the police was not a friend. Go back to Jim Crow. The police was never our friend, fighting through the 50s and 60s for equal rights. Police was not our friend. But to see a man's neck covered by a blue pant wearing, badge toting, gun carrying police officer on the streets of Minneapolis, Minnesota for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, get choked to death is new territory for every American. And this is a worldwide thing now. That little piece of film's been seen worldwide. So that's what's different.
And I think that was an old cliche, Leon, for that. He got caught with his pants down.
Yes, sir.
You know, that's exactly what happened. But there's another piece to it. I think we need to be aware of that. You know, God predestined something for all of us. George Floyd was predestined to be that person, to open the eyes of America. And that's sometimes hard for us to admit, but it was just at the right time and at the right place that America's eyes became open for the most part. Look what's happening. And Leon just said, that ain't us. We don't want that reputation. We don't want folks to think that's us. That's more than we know, but we don't want people, as far as they're concerned, we don't want people to know that. We want to project a better image than that. And so now here we are in this moment. How do we take advantage of this moment to keep moving forward, trying to do the right thing while you still have some more people, like, I forget this police officer's name, but some more people out there just like him right now tonight. There's plenty more out there. But how do we move forward? I think we raise the curtain to say, you know, we got to be careful how we operate from now on, because we might get caught on tape too. Now, one of the things I want to see us do is to make sure that we pass a law, among other things, to say that if a police officer doesn't turn his or her camera on, they'll be convicted.
Right.
They must turn their camera on for, even if it's a broken taillight. Every stop, they must turn their camera on, because this camera is a blessing to us.
Yeah.
We can, you know, and then I think, I'm sure we won't, but I think we ought to go back and get those guys like that trooper in Texas that stopped that woman that time. I forget the deal. Y'all remember? Yeah, I think we ought to go back and convict that guy.
Agree.
Yeah.
I think because to me, I get what Leon is saying about, you know, seeing things in real time, and how we didn't even get to see the one with Ahmaud Arbery until, you know, after the fact and all that. But to me, even what I listened to and the little bit that you could see with Sandra Bland, you know, You know, I mean, but I think I hear what you're saying though. When you can leave anything to the imagination, if there's even a tidbit of a gray area, they're going to use that, you know, to their advantage.
Yeah.
So I get where you're going with that. The world is just in somewhat of a tailspin. You know, we have COVID-19, and then here we come with the race relations, or I say race wars, and we have rioting, and we have looting. I listened to a clip from a guy named Brian Wilson where he was saying the riots are effective, um, and they're necessary, but they're not sustainable to where we really want to go.
No.
Uh,
Well, but they're gonna use, you're gonna have people to use it, because right now they're saying, well, if you don't get COVID-19 from all these people be out there rioting, it's okay to go ahead and open the government back up. There's another excuse, but see, there are two. That's totally.
that's not where I'm going with that. And I just want you to hold on because I definitely want us to go there. I definitely want us to go.
Okay.
But with the looting and the rioting, where is that going to get us? And I am not. I get it. I get it. I am in no way asking this question because I'm saying y'all stop looting and y'all stop. You know, I get it. I get it. Whether I can fully agree with what somebody is doing with the looting, and I wish I wish it was all peaceful protesting. But where is it really going to get us? And I guess I could do a combined question, and say, voting is great. Voting is a wonderful start, but is it really enough?
Well, I think the looting, people express themselves different ways. I don't condone looting and tearing up property for the simple reason because you're tearing up your own property. If you're a taxpayer and somebody burning down a government building, you're paying for it too. So I don't condone looting, but I do understand that that's the way some people express themselves. But I do think the peaceful marches is making one of the greatest statements that's ever been made, because people are saying we are fed
I
up.
totally agree with that.
And
I
something got to
absolutely
happen.
agree with that.
Yeah. Now I do
The
think
statement is that
yeah,
this is got to cease.
yeah, this has got to
This
cease.
has
But
to end.
yeah, but the looting, we know
And
the
we are
looting
all going
don't-
to unite.
Yeah.
We've always said we were the United States. We are the United States now.
Yeah.
We've always used that one nation under God, indivisible.
Under God.
We've always used
we
those
said every
words.
day on the floor. Yeah.
Yeah, we've always used those words.
Mhm.
But now these words have become factual.
Well, and
with that is a goal that we really want to see. I mean, it hadn't happened yet, but now the Constitution, these kids that are out here, and there's so many young people that are out here marching peacefully.
Yeah.
These kids are quoting from the Constitution about the things they want to see change.
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
quoting from the architects and the founders' words themselves. That's huge. And to your point about looting, there were some implants, and people that were put into the areas dressed as though they were going to be picketing peacefully, and they were there to incite looting and incite mob behavior rather than peaceful protest behavior. The governor of Minnesota came on right after, a couple of days after the killing. I can't call it anything but what it was. A couple of days after the murder, and started talking about his state troopers finding and arresting people who didn't even live in the state of Minnesota. They came there to do those things. So, and Dr. King suffered the same thing here. When Dr. King was here for the Sanitation March the first time, that march ended in a riot and window breaking on Main Street,
Mhm.
which is why he came back. So there's always going to be a faction of people that aren't about what the whole thing is about. They're about themselves or another agenda. And we've got to make sure that the media gets these kinds of things right. We're talking earlier about the police having that body cam on at all times. I don't know where we're going to store all that footage, but we need to find somewhere, some bigger clouds, because those cameras don't need to go off. When an officer's not in the police car, that camera needs to be on. That's our first line of defense for knowing that police are doing their job correctly.
Mm-hmm.
It really is.
Yeah. So you guys just take about 2 minutes, if you will. What do you think about the NFL coming out now saying that, hey, we were so wrong. We stand with you, Black community. What do you think about that?
Goodell. Now, if we find Goodell laying in a hotel room, tied up somewhere, we'll we'll know who he's been running around with. I say that in jest. That took a lot of guts. He said three things. He used the word racism and didn't run from it.
Uh-huh.
He actually said, and I quote, there wouldn't be an NFL without Black players.
Uh-huh.
And finally, he said he was wrong about something. He was wrong about stopping the peaceful Kaepernick protest.
Right.
Those are some very powerful statements.
Yeah.
And I understand that's $1 trillion company, the National Football League. That's $1 trillion company, not making a lot of money right now. So I really believe that it wasn't just the money that was behind his words. I think he really has some feelings towards the words he said.
Okay.
Well, no, time will tell.
What do you think, Representative? You're on mute. There you go. There you go.
This new technology.
The whole scene. Hey guys, we're going to take a break. We are here. I am here with Representative Johnny Shaw and Mr. Leon Gray, and we are talking about race relations in America. We are going to take a break, and we will be right back on 94.7 FM. We're back on 94.7 FM. I'm still here with Mr. Leon Gray and Representative Johnny Shaw, and we are talking about race relations in America. Guys, we were talking about voting earlier. Do you think with this COVID-19 and everything else that we've got on, has the voting process already been tainted before we even get started?
Well, I think that possibly yes, because you gotta understand electoral votes is going to be different from popular votes. So I don't know how this present administration, I don't know what they've done with the electoral vote in terms of how they got it all worked out. Because remember last time Hillary Clinton won the popular vote, but we got somebody else as president. So I don't know how it's going to work. I do think it's going to bring more people out to the polls for other elections. And I would say that in America right now, and this may sound a little weird, a little hard, we need to have a good House and a Senate more than we do anything else right now, because the House and the Senate, excuse me, they are the ones who can control all this, but they're not doing it because the Senate's not doing its part. But I think if we had a good Senate with a good House, we could control some of this. So hopefully, if we can't get the main office, we can at least get a House and a Senate back.
I totally agree with you, Representative Shaw.
Yeah.
I've been watching the polls. I like to look at Morning Joe with Joe Scarborough, and they do some wonderful polls. And I have noticed that that there are 4 senators in key states that are in trouble. Arizona being at the top of the list. And even Mitt Romney, is denouncing the president to such a level that other Republicans are feeling some kind of pressure, most especially since he turned the military loose on a peaceful protest in the capital city of Washington, D.C. The generals, former Joint Chiefs of Staff chairmen are coming out talking about this president in ways that has started the conversation. This is the most negative conversation I've ever heard in this 3.5, almost 4 years of his presidency. come out of the mouths of Republicans.
Yeah.
Republicans have been letting him have his way, and quite honestly, they think that his standard 32 to 35%, depending on who you ask, are votes they need to get reelected. So the last thing they're going to do is shoot themselves in the foot, and that's politics at its worst. When all you want to do is get reelected, no matter what's going on in your country, that's politics at its worst, and that's what we're seeing now in this country, and it's a shame. It really is a shame.
And it's like I said, I don't know. I can't speak to the electoral votes, the college. I can't speak to that. I would hope that our electoral process would be fair, but I do know we can take the popular vote and we can get a Senate, majority Senate, as well as a majority House, which we already have. And just like at the state level, the House and the Senate overrides what the governor says. We are the ones who make those final decisions. So if we had the right kind of Senate, we wouldn't be having this problem we're having right now in the first place.
Absolutely.
And
yeah,
so
Mitch McConnell is the worst politician we've had in a century.
Mitch is the key. Not Donald. Mitch is the key. Now, that's what we need to get educated on now. I'd like to see us get both those offices. Don't get me wrong, but if we got to lose one, let's lose the president and get the Senate. And we can get something done, because if we had a Senate that was doing what it should do, as senators have done in the past, we would have a president already in jail.
Yeah.
Yes, we would. But because we got a Senate that will let him do anything he wants to do, well, again, he shouldn't do it. But you have to ask yourself, if you could do anything you wanted to do, what would you do? So
good question.
Because the Senate would never, in the past years that I know, let a president turn the United States military on civilians.
No.
They would be all over the place. They would tear Washington down. But now he got folks saying, hey, that's all right. He did the right thing. So he could hold the Bible upside down. Yeah. So that's what we have. And that's why I say we need to get educated. Now, what I hope and pray, I'm in favor of all of the peaceful protesting, but I hope we see bigger droves on election day.
Absolutely.
For the House and the Senate races.
Yeah, absolutely.
And ask those people, listen, I will tell you, and Ron, I've been on your show before, don't send Johnny Shaw back to Nashville without asking him some serious questions. Will you vote for the right kind of legislation that will make sure that if police officers don't stay in their place, that they get convicted? That's what you need to know from me, because my vote is one of those votes that'll count in the House.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we get young people, guys? How do we get a hold to them? I was kind of intervening on a back and forth commentation between my son and someone on Facebook, because he was so upset and I was like, you don't change the mindset of a person in one conversation. Someone that's just indoctrinated into racism, you can't change it by one conversation, but you can use those energies elsewhere, to make a difference. How do we grab these young folks? Leon, you've had a son graduate from high school. You've got some others that were already in college. How do we get these young folks to understand where we are and what their role is in prompting change?
You've asked, that's a major question, and I can speculate on some things that we should be doing. I've always believed in the Bible telling us to train up a child in the way that he should go. See, my kids have gone to the polls with me. They've seen the buttons be pushed, and now they're my 21-year-old son has actually voted himself, and my 18-year-old went and got his card as soon as he was 18. You train up a child. Unfortunately, what we've had in the past, and I've worked many campaigns, what we've had in the past is a lot of registration and a lot less follow-up. But I do believe the movement, Dr. Shaw, I do believe the movement is a stimulus now, and I don't think it's
Yes.
going anywhere in the next 6 months. I really don't. I think by the time we get to November, it's going to be just as impactful as it's been to this point in the young people's minds, actually working towards some change in how we are policed in the cities we live in this country. We definitely are looking at young people that want to demilitarize police forces. I think that's the reason they'll go to the polls to vote, because they want to vote for people who are in favor of those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
There are people who want to do away, and I'm not sure how I feel on this one, so don't quote me, but there's some people that want to do away with police departments. There are 9 Black city council people in Minneapolis right now who have passed the resolution to, God forbid, do away with police. The police department. And they admit they don't know what that's going to look like, but tearing it down and starting over is something they're willing to try.
I mean, because we got to have order, but I get it. I totally
I get it too.
I totally get it. Yeah.
Well, we all get it, but at the same time, we know there are certain things we must have. We must have law and order. We know that. So whatever they want to make it to become, it's got to be law and order for your sake, my sake, and everybody else. I wouldn't want to be walking around in a lawless country where people could just do anything they want to do. Some folks would be glad to do that, but I wouldn't want to do that. But you say, how do you get young people involved? I think young people have to, if you will, stop for a moment and think. It's wonderful to have a voice, but a voice that does not portray a message is a useless voice. If you want to take the lead, and I hear this a lot, Leon, I know you would agree. You and I have been in leadership for a long time, and what they're kind of saying is, guys like Johnny Shaw and Leon, maybe we ought to get some younger folks in. but I think what you got to understand first and foremost is, if you want a voice, when you speak, you need to say something that means something. You don't just need to talk about you want to take a leadership role. Calling people together is not a leadership role. It's part of a leadership role. You got to call them together, then you got to give them a plan to do something.
Yes.
And I believe that we have a plan that we've looked over for all these years, and that plan is making sure that everybody in your neighborhood is not only registered to vote, but go on the day, whether it's a dog catcher vote or whether it's a presidential vote and everything between, and vote. Some people think only the president's race is important. You got to take every race, your county commission race, your city council race, your dog catching race. Every race has to be important. You need to turn out like you never turn out before for every race. That's how you change things. Now, I have people who complain to me every day about how things are, but when I check their record, they don't vote at all.
Yeah.
See, that's and it's easy. I want to say this, and I want to say this cautiously because I don't want nobody to throw rocks at any of us. It's easy to walk downtown and join a peaceful march. That doesn't cost very much of it. Make your sign and go join it. It takes a little bit of energy to go to the election office and make sure you're registered to vote. Make sure your address and all those things are proper, and then go to the polls on election day and vote. It takes more energy to do that, and some people don't want to exert all of that energy. They just want enough to say, I was out there. You got to do more than just getting out there. You got to do something, and that's what I believe. I believe that if we do that, come August and come November, we can change the course of this country. It's what I believe. Now, do I believe that we're going to stamp out racism? No, but I think we can keep it under control. Racism is much like COVID-19. We can flatten it. We can flatten it. We can't get rid of it, but we can flatten it.
Flatten it.
Yeah.
I like that.
And if we put the right people in office, we can flatten racism.
Mm-hmm.
Because what they'll do is they'll pass laws that'll say to any police officer, whoever he may be, black or white, if you get out of your place, you're not going to get transferred to a desk. We're going to convict you.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't turn your camera on, like I said a while ago, when you stop for a broken tail light or whatever, we're going to convict you. We're not going to take your word over the citizens' words anymore. Now, on the other hand, you and all of us here today understand that some folk you got to deal with differently. We know that. But if you turn your camera on, we'll know why you had to deal with them differently.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've told your brothers, when the police stop you, that person, they are in charge right then. If he tell you to keep your hands on the wheel, keep your hands on the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
If he tell you to get out of the car, even if it's raining, your suit might not stand the rain, but get out of the car. Get his badge number and turn him in. But you got to know when to hold them and when to fold them.
That's right. You got to survive. Yeah.
You got to survive. And that's what a lot of times.
This is where I think we might at least be moving that needle a little bit on those types of things is what I pray we can at least flatten the curve on those types of things, where, you can at least be pulled over. And even if I'm given a citation unfairly, I can leave there alive,
Alive. Yeah. That's what we want to do is leave alive, because you're going to get some unfair citations. You're going to get all of that. And again, no need of us thinking, Jesus didn't stamp it out. So how do you think we're going to stamp it out?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Jesus had the same problem we got now, Rhonda. That was Jesus' problem. The Jews was making laws that they thought they had to live by, really God's law.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this ain't new.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about and Leon, you're in social media too quite a bit. I've been seeing a lot of posts, like a whole lot of, I hate to say her name on my show, but I got to, Candace Owens. I've seen other posts. I saw one today where someone had an African American state trooper, and the caption said, "I only kneel for one person," meaning God.
Mm-hmm.
Which they were talking against kneeling, Colin Kaepernick and all that. So I so my white friends that do that. I so want to, I'm saying friends as in Facebook friends. I so want to go, I see you. but of course, but I still have to ask myself, like, it's the same as saying all lives matter to me. It's like you just can't let us have this whole idea and concept that we're saying, because of how we've been oppressed and how we've been mistreated, how we've been murdered senselessly, we matter. And
we do, but
we bow to God too,
We do, but here's the deal, though. Here's what I'm saying. I think one thing we are missing, and maybe you guys may disagree with me, but I don't have a right to do wrong because I've been treated wrong.
No.
And that's one of the things. And let me finish my statement. It's like wearing the mask. I wear a mask when I go to the legislature, not just to protect Johnny Shaw, but to protect other people.
Mm-hmm.
I respect my freedom. Helps me to understand I don't have to wear that mask, but I respect other people. And so what we got to understand is our freedom doesn't give us a chance to run over folks, but respect other people. And when you say, I'm not, one of the things that's making this movement so powerful, everybody's doing the same thing. You remember that? And remember, if we go back to the Tower of Babel, if you go back, that God couldn't stop them until he confused the language. When everybody do the same thing, you get stuff done, right? Mm-hmm. You get stuff done. But when we start, one says, well, I ain't going to do it because that's my freedom not to do it. That's where we make our mistake. If all of us hold fast to doing the same thing, marching peacefully, we're going to get something done. But when some of us say, well, I ain't gonna kneel because I ain't got, well, you missing the point. You missing the point. Maybe you don't need to kneel, but can you kneel for somebody who needs you to kneel? Mm-hmm. That's what I think we have got to learn to do.
Yeah, and so these are actually the white people that are actually speaking against the peaceful protesting,
Yeah,
speaking against. And actually today there was an article that came out about the Democrats in the White House that kneeled
yeah,
in. Yeah, and so
In the Capitol, at the state Capitol, Nancy Pelosi and some other Democrats. Yes.
yeah.
so from that they ended up posting. And so the whole idea that if you feel like you can post a black person that seems to be as racist as you are,
Yeah,
that makes me feel better.
good about it. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes, I take issue with that, and
yeah,
I just don't understand how what kind of mindset a person has to think that because you post a speech from Candace Owens, I'm gonna feel less like I've been oppressed or mistreated any less, or no.
no,
Candace Owens is not unlike a lot of, and maybe a lot's overstated, but not unlike many African Americans who choose to go off script for the attention that going off script is going to get them. In
Amen.
other words, on their own merit, they're not going to get the attention that they glean and that they desire. But as soon as they go off script and make themselves different than what people would think they are, Candace loves to tout how great Trump is. Well,
Yeah.
Trump doesn't have a bunch of black folks doing that, so that gives her some celebrity.
yeah,
And I'd rather believe it's about the celebrity than it is about how much she likes Trump. And we've always had, you use your own terms, Uncle Tom, or there are others that aren't quite as
My guest said last week, people in the field and people in the house.
Well, you got to understand that some people's ice water is colder than others.
Yes,
And
sir.
you see, Candace know that right now, Donald Trump, for her, Donald's water is colder than our water. So she gets that attention by talking about him, because if, like in Leon, you hit the nail on the head. Since it's not but one of her, everybody calls her and praise her for what she does. So she thinks she's living a life of Riley when she don't know she's cutting her own throat.
Yeah.
Because when the deal go down, it don't, yeah. I mean, you know,
where's
that's
Amarosa now?
yeah. I don't even know Candace. I just know when the deal go down, you're gonna be in the deal like everybody else. You know?
I told you guys I have the Radio Kings with me today. We are going to take a break and we will be right back on the Gospel Giant 94.7 FM. And we are still here on 94.7 FM with Representative Johnny Shaw and Mr. Leon Gray, and we are talking about race relations in America. Guys, what do you think about that Black Lives Matter street?
Leading to the White House?
Yeah, I think that's cool.
I think the mayor of D.C. just showed Donald Trump who runs that city.
That's exactly, yeah. That's
and
cool.
at least the public works department of that city.
Yeah.
I think it's a fine idea to glean some more continuity among the young people young people get frustrated very quickly.
Yeah.
And if they don't see some progress, their frustration can turn in many ways. One way it can turn is back into violence. Another way it can turn is I'm tired of doing this and I don't want to do it anymore because we're not making any headway. But when we can start seeing some tangible signs of change, young people will stick with that effort. Like I said earlier in the show, seeing two lynchings in real time, virtually 3 weeks apart, has awakened a new spirit. It's as though the millennials now are living in the 60s. Think about it like that. This is like the 60s for millennials. This is like the 50s and the 60s. Things that went on then that we thought we wouldn't see again, Johnny Shaw. Dr. Sharonda Shaw, we're looking at, boom, right in the face. We're getting hit in a time warp, if you will. We have gone back 50, 60, 70, 80 years with what we call race relations. Let me say this too about race relations. I think we cannot miss a point that I don't think the millennials will push. And that point is that we've got to start with those who say they serve the same God we serve. So
Amen.
the 11 o'clock hour, or whatever hour that is service at your church, that's got to cease to be the most segregated hour in America. We've got the body of Christ has got to become closer if this is going to be effective and have a lasting effect in this country. The people who love Christ, the people who love their God, are the people who serve him. And if we can't come together on one accord at a time when it's as major as it is right now for change, then we are failing the God we serve.
And you know what, Dr. Gray, you're moving into totally another radio show, because let me tell you something. I mean, we about as far apart on Sunday morning, and I'm not talking about white community, just the Black community. We separate ourselves on Sunday morning.
Yes, we do.
And being in business, and I say this cautiously because it's not hurting me, but I own a 24/7 gospel radio station, but I got Black ministers who would rather spend their dollars with the white radio stations. So if you talk about totally another program now. So there's a lot we got to do for ourselves, really. That's why I said at the beginning of the show, do I need America to love me, or do I need to love America? And I think we have to really stop, because I've been preaching on this for several weeks. The church is in us. It's in us. It's not in a building. And I think we put it off on something else. But we do have to come together as a group of baptized believers. And we got to stop one playing the holier game than the other. This is Holy Ghost headquarters over here, and this is quiet headquarters. We got to stop that and get together ourselves.
Amen.
Because we're serving the same God who died for our sins and who gave us salvation. Yeah.
And while you're preaching, I've been using this a lot with my Sunday school class, even though we haven't been studying this particular scripture, but I bring it up every Sunday. We've got to make sure that we understand that we are not struggling with flesh and blood. We got to make sure our young people understand this is not a push against flesh and blood, but this is against evil in high places.
Yes, it is. Evil in high places, but we also know what God's promise is, even through Paul, when he said all things work together for good to them who love God, them who are called according to his purpose. And if we, and you remember this, and do I have time to make this point, Rhonda? I don't want to run over your time, because you'll be fussed. But listen to what God said when Solomon was dedicating the temple. After all of the dedication, and they gave all of that, God appeared to Solomon that night and basically said this: now, Solomon, you've done your part, but I want you to know, I may shut up heaven and not let it rain. I may even cause the locusts to devour the crops. But if my people, which are called by my name, will humble themselves. In other words, change their attitude, change their ways about me, humble themselves, pray, seek my face, and turn, then I will hear from heaven. So we know the real key to this is Jesus Christ. Although people like you and I know that some folks haven't come along that far, so we got to try to help bring them along. Mm-hmm. But they got to want to help themselves as well.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think as a race, we have to put ourselves in a position where we can even offer some like economical consequences, because as it stands right now, I was talking to my dad about this morning. Like we can't, we don't have really grocery stores. There are certain things that we don't have that we will have to continue, so when they're talking about not shopping for one day, I mean, there are certain things, there are certain needs that we have that we would still.
You'd have to shop somewhere. Yeah, you're right. So there's a lot we've got to do, but I think we're on the right track if we all just, again, if we all do what we know we can do honestly and trust God, and I think you both would agree, then God is going to get us through this somehow, because
Absolutely.
Every time we go back and look from Genesis to Revelation, God never failed. People got in tight places. It didn't seem like they were going to get out, but God never failed his people.
Go ahead, Leon. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say amen. And I still believe in the economic boycott. I think one of the reasons that we are watching as much evil, as rampant as it is, that there are more shows that are teaching our kids the wrong thing than good shows on TV that teach our kids the right thing, while there are more records that have explicit lyrics in them that are actually getting played sneakily on radio. I made that word up.
Yeah.
Because the church used to stand up and say, we're not gonna, if Coca-Cola is the sponsor of that show and we don't like that show, we're not gonna buy Coca-Cola. And Coca-Cola was sponsoring that show. The church is a powerful entity. The black church, and I hate that term because we're many churches. There's no one black church, and I hate to minimize us to one church because we're so big. But black churches in this country are a financial engine that is the fourth largest country in the world.
Yes.
Think about that. Our financial engine that works in the black church is the fourth largest country economically in the world.
Yeah. And we can speak
that kind of power.
That's a very good point. I told you guys, I told you that I wanted you to hold on because I was going to come back to this. COVID-19, I saw a sign today, and I want to read what this sign says to you guys, and I want your thoughts. COVID-19 is a false flag operation to usher in the new world order. They are forcing death certificates to inflate the figures. Do your research. Say no to martial law, mandatory vaccinations, one world currency, and cashless society. What do you think of that?
Guy pulled me over in the store three Saturdays ago, asked me why I had a mask on, and read to me that same diatribe that you just read, or something very similar to it. Mm-hmm. There are always going to be people who are non-believers. They're going to be from Missouri. You're going to have to show them.
Yeah,
that's just the way it is. But I believe, and I have faith in enough people who have a reputation in this city. I'm not even gonna go to this country. I know Dr. Haushalter personally, who runs our health department. I know for a fact that Dr. Haushalter is not getting on TV every week giving me bad numbers because that's just not her nature. She's not part of any big conspiracy. So when you see that almost 6,000 people in Shelby County have been infected and almost 130 people have died, that's real. Mm-hmm. And then you multiply that by every county in this country, you get up to that 100,000 number. So, Dr. Shaw, I would tell you something. I pity people who run an agenda for no reason. If I'm gonna run an agenda, if I'm gonna run a game on you, Leon's gonna have a reason to do it. There are people out there that just spewing things like that don't even have a reason to do it. They just don't have anything else to do. And
but you know where that's coming from. Because see, what they're saying now is they're saying that COVID-19 came along so Mr. Trump could be beat. That's what they say.
That's what Trump said.
And you got to understand that the devil.
That is what he said.
The devil will pull any straw out of the broom he can to make himself look good.
You preaching right now.
You got to understand. And I tell you, even when you look at the flip side of Job, if you look spiritually, when the devil says, when they came to him and gave him all the bad news. Now, I know somebody going to say, wait a minute, I better look at that again. But actually, the bad news was good news. Because if you love God, even if the storm blew you away, you're still in good shape.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You see what I'm saying? So
yes,
here they are now saying, oh man, this ain't real. And that's why they are not wearing their masks. They are trying to prove to people and praying like I don't know what, that they can hold on until November to prove. And after November, something totally different will happen. Now, I'll notice in the House, not all of them, but the majority of the Caucasian legislators are not wearing masks. Because they are trying to say, ain't nothing to this. We need to open the government back up. But now you know
Right.
who losing the most money in this now? Mr. Trump.
Absolutely.
Because if they marching down Pennsylvania Avenue, can't nobody go to his hotel. Ain't nobody gonna go to his golf course, his restaurant. So this is another game that's being played. But here's what I look at. Not only do I look at the experts about COVID-19, over 100,000 folks done died.
Yes, sir.
Hey, that's enough to tell me it's something to it. I don't know what's to it, but it's something. You know, so I think we have to ignore that kind of stuff because that's the kind of stuff. You're going to hear more messages about COVID-19 and all this stuff between now and November than you've ever heard in all the days of your life.
Yeah.
Do you believe that stuff? Well, you have to know who the liars are and who the folks who tell the truth.
Hey, I'm convinced. I'm totally convinced. I got my mask. So my final question, and you guys can just weigh in on this and give me your final thoughts as we leave the show today. If you haven't lived it, if you haven't experienced it, you know, how can I expect you to really get it? You know, and
don't.
I see that some people, you know, are standing up, speaking boldly. Thank God. You know, I'm saying people, white people that are speaking up. But the ones that haven't, that really, I mean, they just don't get it. Like I said, it's a mindset. It's almost an indoctrination. How can we expect them to really get it? And just tell me your final thoughts on what you think is next. Where do we go from here?
The disassociation of a certain group of Caucasian brothers and sisters with the group that is so quote unquote racist is a big part of the problem because of the denial that they paint themselves having, that they paint themselves not having, but that they paint themselves not part of that group.
Mm-hmm.
So here are the catchphrases. I have black friends.
Yes.
I had some black people over at my house the other day.
Yeah.
Here's one of my favorite ones. I voted for Obama.
Yeah.
You know, that's one of my favorite ones. And here's the one that I always question. My parents taught me not to see color.
Ooh,
Well,
yeah.
my reflection on that is, did you ask them why they had to teach you that lesson? Because therein lies the philosophy of racism right there.
what kind of eyes you got? You go around not seeing color.
Well, I
But why
mean, how do you
keep
know?
talking?
How do you know you black if you are white if you don't see color? I mean, come on. You know.
Because
Absolutely.
I know we're being petty here, being sarcastic, but you get my point. The whole idea is, I know what color you are. I know what color your skin is when I look at you, but I don't treat you based on that. I don't treat you any type of way based on what your skin looks like. You know,
Everything that has happened to us has been based on that one factor.
yeah.
That one factor.
One fact. Yeah.
It's as if, and here's what I want my white people to understand. The one, I have some that listen in, I have some that I believe genuinely try and get it, right? And here's what I want them to understand. Like, we don't get up every day and put our skin on like we do our clothes.
Oh, come on.
You playing the race card, Dr. Shaw.
Yeah, I know.
And
We have to bury that one now, don't we? There's no more race card.
here's another one, you know, because I have to say this, because when I think of just us here in this circle and what we've done in our lives, you know, to try to live decent, good lives, and you know, we've had pretty decent provisions made in our lives, whether it was our parents and then we grew up and we tried to do better for ourselves or whatever, you know, and people that think, you know, black people are just lazy and we get stigmatized as don't want to do anything. And, you know, some of us actually, I can use my dad in this example, fought through some tough times, right? And said, you know what, regardless of what's happening around me, I'm still going to make something of myself, you know. And I always use him because I've just never seen, and I have to, he knows I love him, but I've just never seen, you know, this witness this self-made man, this great guy, right, that has done so well for himself. And I know, I can only imagine some of the barriers that were there. But everybody don't have that mindset. Everybody don't have the mental, mental state to do it. Some people don't have the mental energies to do it. Some people are so depressed and oppressed and all the other press you can put with it. And you just cannot stigmatize people for the skin that they wake up with.
Well, but that's it in a nutshell. And I think it goes back to what I said. Dad has said to me, remember who you are. Your name's Johnny Shaw. But I live by this, and I do, and I said it before, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. I never allowed those barriers to stop me. Now, you're right. Not everybody have that energy or that determination, but that's the whole point. We can sit still and find every excuse in the world not to do something because of all the barriers that are out there before us. Or we can say, look, I don't care what's out there. This is what I want to do, and I'm going to do it. And I think that's another piece that we have to wake up to, and
Yes.
don't let excuses stop us. We got some brilliant people in our race, some brilliant people. And they can do things, but they'll say, well, but this is going to be too hard. And that term, freedom ain't free, goes way beyond what we think. It's going to cost you something to exercise your freedom. And I'm going to say again, all of this is not going to go away. We just got to find a way to maneuver through it and push back the brush and move on. We got to do that.
Yeah. And I mean, Dr. King said, you can't tell a man to pull himself up by the bootstraps if the man doesn't have any boots. So
That's right.
People in different situations, I know that can. But to my people that can, and to my people that have, I say to you, pull somebody with you. I try every day. I really do. I genuinely try to pull somebody with me. I love you guys. I thank you, Radio Kings, for being here today. I look forward to having you guys back again. Y'all are always my go-tos.
How much you pay?
Huh?
How much you pay?
I can't hear you now. You're on mute.
How much do you pay?
I will see you
Like Trump, the
right
check in
back
the
here
mail.
Saturday on 94.7 FM, The Gospel Giant. We'll see you then.